Right now, in the United Kingdom, there are hundreds of thousands of pensioners being quietly robbed, not by scammers, not by fraudsters, by their own government. And the truly devastating part? Most of them don't even know it's happening. We're talking about losses of nearly £6,000 a year, every single year. In some households, over £7,000 vanishing, money they are legally entitled to. Money that was designed specifically for people in their exact situation. Gone. Because of one rule. A rule so obscure, so buried in the small print of the benefit system, that most people have never heard of it until they desperately need help and are told, flat out, that they don't qualify. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because whether this affects you right now, whether it affects someone you love, or whether you simply believe that the system should treat people fairly, what you're about to hear will shock you, anger you, and give you information that could genuinely change someone's life. Let's start at the beginning, because to understand the injustice, you first need to understand what's being taken away. Pension credit is one of the most powerful financial tools available to older people in the UK, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. A lot of people hear the word pension and assume it's connected to how much they paid into the national insurance system over the years. It isn't. Not at all. Pension credit is a means-tested benefit. That means it is based entirely on your income, not on your contribution history. It doesn't matter how much you've worked. It doesn't matter how many years you paid national insurance. What matters is how much money is coming into your household right now. It was designed with one specific purpose in mind, to make sure that nobody in the UK who has reached state pension age is left living below a basic financial floor, a guaranteed minimum standard of living. Right now, that floor sits at $227.10 per week for a single person. For a couple, it's $346 per week. So if your income drops below those figures, pension credit steps in and fills the gap. It tops you up to that minimum level. That alone would make it an incredibly important benefit. But the real power of pension credit goes much further than just the weekly top-up amount. Think of pension credit as a master key. Once you have it, it unlocks a whole series of other financial support that you simply cannot access without it. Help with housing costs, support with your council tax bill, assistance with NHS health expenses, glasses, dental treatment, travel to hospital appointments, cold weather payments when temperatures drop, free TV licenses for those aged 75 and over, the support for mortgage interest scheme. The list goes on and on. In other words, pension credit isn't just a benefit in itself. It is the entry ticket to an entire safety net. For someone living on a low income in their later years, receiving pension credit can make the difference between surviving and not surviving financially, between heating your home or not heating it, between affording your medications or going without. Now here is the question that matters most. Who does this system leave behind? Who has the door to this safety net slammed shut in their face, regardless of how much they need it, regardless of how low their income is? The answer is one specific group. And if you're in this group, or if someone you love is, what comes next is going to hit hard. Mixed age couples. That's the term the government uses, and it sounds innocent enough. But underneath that phrase sits a rule that is causing real, serious, measurable financial harm to some of the most vulnerable older people in the country. Here is how it works. Pension credit has an age requirement. To claim it, you must have reached state pension age, which currently sits at 66. That makes sense on the surface. It's a pensioner benefit. Pensioners claim it. But here is where it gets complicated, where it gets unfair, where depending on your situation, it may feel deeply cruel. If you are part of a couple, both partners must have reached state pension age, both of them, at the same time. If even one partner is under 66, even by one single day, the entire household is locked out of pension credit entirely. Let that sink in for a moment. You could be 70 years old, 75, 80. You could have a weekly income that falls far short of the pension credit threshold. You could be in genuine, serious financial need. But if your partner is 65 years old, or 62, or 58, you cannot claim pension credit. The door is shut. End of conversation. It doesn't matter that you are a pensioner. It doesn't matter that your income qualifies. The age of your partner, the person you chose to build your life with, determines your access to support that was specifically designed for people in your exact financial situation. Think about some real couples this rule affects right now. A 69-year-old man whose wife is 63, both living on a modest income, both struggling with rising bills and the cost of living. He has reached state pension age. She has not. Under this rule, they cannot claim pension credit. They are directed instead to universal credit, the working age benefit system, where the support available is significantly lower. A 74-year-old woman whose husband is 61. She is deep into retirement. He may have health conditions that prevent him from working. Their combined household income is low enough that they would easily qualify for pension credit if the older partner's age alone were the deciding factor. But it isn't, and they get nothing. And then there is the case that, more than any other, illustrates just how brutal this rule can be in practice. A charity called Independent Age runs a helpline for older people experiencing financial hardship. The people who call that line are not calling casually. They are calling because they are struggling, because they are scared, because they need help. Not long ago, that helpline received a call from a 79-year-old person, 79 years old. They were calling because they couldn't make ends meet. They wanted to know about pension credit, whether they could claim it, how much it might provide, whether it might help them access some of the linked support they desperately needed. And when they explained their situation, the answer they received was devastating. They could not claim pension credit, not because of anything to do with their own age or their own finances, but because their partner is 59 years old. Under the mixed-age couples rule, this 79-year-old person would need to wait while struggling financially, until their partner reaches state pension age. That means waiting until they themselves are 87 years old. 8 more years. 8 more years of financial hardship. 8 more years of being excluded from support their income clearly qualifies them for. 8 more years paying a financial penalty simply for being in a relationship with someone younger than them. Joanna Elwin, the chief executive of Independent Age, put it with devastating clarity. She said that the government has created a situation where two people of identical age with identical incomes are treated completely differently by the system, simply because one of them has a younger partner. And she's absolutely right. Picture two neighbors, both 70 years old, both living on the same income, both in genuine need of financial support. One is single, the other has a partner who is 64. The single person, or the person whose partner is also over 66, claims pension credit. They receive the full weekly top-up. They unlock the council tax support, the housing help, the NHS cost assistance, the cold weather payments. They have a financial safety net underneath them. The other person, the one with the 64-year-old partner, gets none of that. They're pushed into the universal credit system instead. The amounts are lower, the structure is different, and the gap between what they receive and what they would have received under pension credit is, according to Independent Age's analysis of government figures, around £5,900 a year. £5,900 every year, simply because of who they fell in love with. To understand why this rule exists, you need to go back to 2019, because this wasn't always how the system worked. Before May 2019, mixed-age couples had a genuine choice. If one partner had reached state pension age and the other hadn't, the couple could look at both systems, pension credit and universal credit, and decide which one worked better for their situation. They had flexibility. The system acknowledged that real life is messy, that people don't always reach the same milestones at the same time, and that a pensioner's financial needs don't suddenly disappear just because their partner is a few years younger. Then the government changed the rules. From May 2019 onward, that flexibility was gone. Mixed-age couples, regardless of how old the older partner was, would be treated as working-age couples for all means-tested benefits, both partners into the universal credit system. The pension credit door closed permanently until both partners hit 66. The response from charities and campaign groups was immediate and fierce. Age UK, one of the largest and most respected charities working with older people in the UK, came out straight away and called the change unfair. They warned it would lead to financial hardship. They flagged the research and the numbers. They raised the alarm. But here's the piece of the 2019 change that is perhaps the most striking, perhaps the most ironic, in the darkest possible way. Under the new rules, it can actually be financially better for a pensioner to be single, or to live separately from their younger partner, than to be in a couple together. Think about what that means. A 70-year-old person living with their 63-year-old partner loses thousands of pounds a year under this rule. The same 70-year-old person living alone would be fully eligible for pension credit. The policy, in a very literal financial sense, puts a price on being in a relationship with someone younger. It financially penalizes love. It creates a system where elderly people might actually be better off, purely in financial terms, if they separated from their partners. No policy should ever push people in that direction, and yet here we are. So with all of this, with charities raising alarms, with MPs asking questions, with real people losing thousands of pounds a year, what does the government say? What is the official position? Because this is where the story gets very important. A Liberal Democrat MP named Liz Jarvis took this issue directly to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. She sent a formal letter. She asked a very specific question. What assessment has the government made of the impact this rule is having on pensioner poverty among mixed-age couples? The response came from Stephen Timms, the Minister of State at the Department for Work and Pensions. And Minister Timms defended the rule. He described it as important. His argument is essentially this: the younger partner in a mixed-age couple is still of working age. They should still be in a benefit system that encourages and supports employment. Universal credit, he argues, provides that pathway. It connects people to job-seeking support. It keeps them engaged with the labor market. It helps them continue building their own retirement savings. He also pointed out that the older partner in these households is placed in what's called the no work-related requirements group, meaning the pensioner themselves isn't expected to look for work. Only the younger partner is considered part of the working age component of the claim. And he pointed to a planned increase in universal credit rates as evidence of the government's commitment to supporting people's living costs. From April 2026, the universal credit standard allowance is set to rise by 3.8%. The following year, a further increase of 2.3%. Minister Timms described this as the first sustained above-inflation rise to universal credit for all claimants. Now let's be fair here. That increase is genuinely positive news for everyone receiving universal credit, and it's worth acknowledging it as such, but it does not fix the fundamental problem. A 3.8% increase on a lower base amount does not close a nearly £6,000 annual gap. You can increase universal credit every year, but if the structural gap between universal credit rates and pension credit rates remains, mixed-age couples will continue to fall thousands of pounds behind where they would be if both partners had reached state pension age. The percentage might go up. The inequality stays. And there's something else about the government's employment argument that deserves serious scrutiny, because the logic only holds up if you accept certain assumptions about who the younger partners in these couples actually are and what their circumstances look like. When you look at the reality on the ground, those assumptions fall apart very quickly. The government's reasoning treats the younger partner as someone who can and should be encouraged to work, someone who is capable of economic activity, someone who just needs the right system around them to keep them in the labor market. But who are the actual younger partners in mixed-age couples? Some are in their early 60s with health conditions that make sustained employment impossible or very difficult. Some have disabilities. Some have been out of the workforce for years, not because of laziness or lack of motivation, but because life intervened. Caring responsibilities, illness, redundancy in sectors that were restructured out of existence. And then there is a group that independent age specifically highlighted. And when you hear about them, the government's employment argument collapses entirely. Carers. Some of the younger partners in mixed-age households are not working because they are providing full-time unpaid care for their older partner. A 62-year-old woman who gave up her job to care for her 73-year-old husband with a serious illness. A 64-year-old man who spends his days supporting a 75-year-old wife with dementia. These people are not unemployed in any meaningful sense. They are working incredibly hard, without pay, without recognition, without the financial support they deserve. And under the current system, the government looks at their household and says, you need employment support. You should be in universal credit because your younger partner should be seeking work. It would be almost funny if it weren't so harmful. Independent age has been absolutely explicit about what they want to see happen. They are urging the government to reverse the mixed age couples rule, fully reverse it, return to the kind of flexibility that existed before 2019, where couples could access pensioner benefits as soon as the older partner reaches state pension age. They're not asking for anything extraordinary. They're not asking for new money or a new system. They're asking for a return to how things worked before a specific policy change made life significantly harder for some of the most vulnerable older people in the country. Joanna Elwyn said it in a way that cuts straight through all the policy language and the government statements and gets to the heart of what we're actually talking about here. She said that who you fall in love with and who you choose to spend your later years with should not determine how much financial support you receive from the state. In a country that prides itself on its welfare system, in a country that built the NHS, the state pension, and the whole framework of Social Security. That statement carries enormous weight. Now here's something critically important, and I want every single person watching this to hear it clearly, because this next part is about action, not just outrage. If you are in a mixed-age couple situation right now, if you are the older partner who has reached state pension age while your partner hasn't, yes, pension credit is currently out of reach for you. That is the reality under the current rules, and that is deeply unfair, but that does not mean there is no support available to you. Universal credit, despite providing less than pension credit, is still a benefit system with real money attached to it. And here's the thing that campaigns and charities have highlighted repeatedly. A significant number of people across the UK are not claiming benefits they are actually entitled to, simply because they don't know about them, or because the system is confusing, or because they assume they won't qualify without ever checking. Mixed-age couples directed to universal credit may still be entitled to amounts that could genuinely help their situation. The amounts will be lower than pension credit, but lower is not nothing, and for a household that is struggling financially, every pound matters. If you're uncertain about what you might be entitled to, please reach out. There are organizations staffed with people whose entire purpose is to help you navigate this system and find every penny you're owed. Age UK offers free expert guidance on benefits for older people. You can reach them through their national helpline or through your local Age UK branch. Independent Age operates a helpline specifically for older people facing financial hardship. Citizens Advice has trained advisors who can walk through your whole financial situation and identify benefits you might be missing. Your local council may also have a welfare rights team or financial inclusion service. These aren't bureaucratic dead ends. They're real people who know the system inside and out, and they find money for people every single day that those people didn't know they were owed. A 1-hour conversation with a benefits advisor can sometimes unlock thousands of pounds in support that was always there, just unclaimed. And now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this story sits inside a much larger conversation about pensioner poverty in the UK. According to recent data, around 1.9 million older households are eligible for pension credit but are not claiming it. 1.9 million. The take-up rate for pension credit has been stubbornly low for years, which is why the government periodically runs campaigns encouraging people to apply. But think about that number in the context of everything we've been discussing. Over 1.5 million households eligible for pension credit, but not claiming it. And on top of that, a separate group who are not eligible simply because of the mixed age rule. 2 different sets of people missing out on the same support, for very different reasons. The estimated total value of pension credit that goes unclaimed every year runs into billions of pounds. Billions. Money that was set aside specifically to support older people on low incomes, sitting uncollected, while those same people struggle to cover their bills. And for mixed-age couples, the picture is even more stark. The analysis from Independent Age, using the government's own figures, puts the average annual loss at around £5,900 per couple. In the households most severely affected, it rises above £7,000. Multiplied across all the mixed-age couples affected by this rule, we're talking about an enormous sum of money being withheld from people who need it. This isn't a minor technicality. This isn't an edge case affecting a handful of people. The number of couples caught by the mixed age rule is in the hundreds of thousands. These are real families, real households, real people who are cold in winter and anxious about every bill. Let's also talk about the health dimension of this, because financial hardship at older ages doesn't just affect bank balances. It affects physical health, mental health, quality of life, longevity. Research consistently shows a strong link between financial insecurity in later life and poorer health outcomes: stress, inadequate heating, reduced ability to afford good nutrition, delayed or avoided medical care. These aren't abstract concerns. They translate directly into worse health for older people, more pressure on the NHS, and in the most serious cases, earlier deaths. When we talk about the 5,900 pounds a year that mixed-age couples are losing, we are not just talking about a number on a spreadsheet. We are talking about whether someone can adequately heat their home, whether they can afford the fresh food that keeps them healthy, whether the stress of financial uncertainty is compounding whatever other health challenges they're already dealing with. The cold weather payment, one of the benefits unlocked by pension credit, exists specifically because we know that cold homes kill older people. It's not a philosophical benefit. It has a measurable impact on survival. And mixed-age couples locked out of pension credit also lose access to that payment. The cost of this rule is not just financial, it is measured in well-being, in health, potentially in lives. There's also a gender dimension to this issue that gets far too little attention. Women are disproportionately represented among mixed-age couples, and specifically among the carers within those couples, because women still statistically take on more caring responsibilities than men. More women leave paid employment to care for older or ill partners. More women are in the position described earlier, the 62-year-old woman caring for her 73-year-old husband, the person whose situation the government's employment argument completely fails to account for. Women also, on average, have smaller pension pots than men. Years spent out of the workforce for caring responsibilities translate directly into lower lifetime earnings and lower pension contributions, which means women in mixed-age couple households are often hit doubly hard. Less financial cushion of their own, and no access to the pension credit safety net that could help compensate. This isn't a marginal consideration. It's a core part of why the mixed-age couples rule is not just bad policy. It's bad policy that lands disproportionately on women who have already been disadvantaged by a system that didn't value their caring work. Now, you might be wondering, is there any realistic chance this rule gets changed? The honest answer is maybe, eventually, but not without sustained pressure. The government's current position, as expressed by Minister Timms, is to defend the rule, to describe it as important, to offer the employment support argument as justification. That's not the language of a department preparing to reverse course. But the political and campaigning landscape around this issue is shifting. Independent Age has escalated their campaign significantly. They're using real case studies, real people, real numbers, real stories like the 79-year-old waiting until they are 87 to put a human face on what is otherwise easy to dismiss as a dry policy debate. Age UK continues to push. MPs are asking parliamentary questions. The media occasionally picks up the story. Each time it gets attention, more people become aware of it. More affected families speak up, and the political pressure to act increases. What makes change more likely is when affected people themselves make their voices heard, when constituents contact their MPs directly, when the human cost of this rule becomes impossible for politicians to ignore, when the stories of real couples, the 79-year-old, the carer giving up work to support an ill spouse, become the dominant frame through which people understand this issue. If you're affected by this rule, or if someone you care about is, consider writing to your MP. You can find who your MP is and how to contact them through the Parliament website. Just enter your postcode. A personal letter or email describing how this rule is affecting your actual life is far more powerful than a petition or a general campaign. MPs respond to constituent contact. It's one of the most direct ways that policy actually changes. Let's also address something that sometimes comes up in discussions about benefits because it's worth dealing with head-on. Some people hear stories like this, and their instinct is to wonder whether the government's concern about the cost of reversing this rule is reasonable. to wonder whether, in a tight fiscal environment, it's realistic to expect the reversal of a policy that saves money. It's a fair question, and the answer requires some nuance. Yes, reverting to the pre-2019 system would cost money. Benefits that are currently withheld from mixed-age couples would instead be paid. That has a cost. But that framing only makes sense if you accept the premise that the money is legitimately saved rather than simply withheld from people who need it and are entitled to it. When you frame it the other way, when you say the current system is denying eligible people access to support they qualify for, the question shifts. It's not, can we afford to help them? It's, is it acceptable to keep withholding money from pensioners in financial hardship because their partner is younger than 66? And the answer to that question, for most people thinking about it honestly and humanely, is no. The fiscal argument for keeping this rule only works if you're willing to look past the people it's harming. And once you've heard about the 79-year-old waiting until they're 87 or the full-time carer being told to seek employment support, it becomes very difficult to look past them. Here is where everything we've covered today comes together. The mixed-age couples rule is a specific, identifiable policy change made in 2019. It affects a specific, identifiable group of people. It causes a specific, measurable financial harm, around £5,900 a year on average, more in the worst affected households. It was opposed by major charities at the time it was introduced. It has been opposed ever since. Its justification, the employment support argument, falls apart in the face of the real people it affects, many of whom are carers or too unwell to work, and it creates the deeply perverse incentive for elderly people to financially consider separating from younger partners. It's the kind of policy that, once you understand it fully, is very hard to defend, which is why the work of organizations like Independent Age and Age UK matters so much. Why conversations like this one matter, why every person who hears this story and shares it with someone who needs to know matters. The system does not automatically correct itself. It corrects itself when enough people know what's happening, when enough people speak up, and when the people making the decisions cannot escape the human reality of what their policies are doing. Let's bring this home with the practical takeaways, because I want you to leave this video not just informed and angry, but equipped. If you are the older partner in a mixed-age couple and you're currently struggling financially, you may not be eligible for pension credit right now, but you should absolutely get a full benefits check done. Universal credit may offer more support than you're currently accessing. Contact Age UK, Independent Age, or Citizens Advice and ask them to go through your full situation. Don't assume you know what you're entitled to. Let a trained advisor find every penny that's owed to you. If you know someone in this situation, share this information with them. Many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are not regularly online, don't watch YouTube, don't read policy briefings. They rely on people around them to flag information that affects their lives. You might be the person who changes their situation by simply mentioning this. If you want to push for change, write to your MP. Personal constituent letters are genuinely influential. Describe the situation, whether it's your own or someone you know. Ask them directly where they stand on the mixed-age couples rule and whether they support Independent Age's call for a reversal. And if you're in a position where this is becoming a crisis, where financial hardship is having a serious impact on your health or well-being, please don't wait. Reach out to organizations that can help right now. The numbers for Age UK, Independent Age, and Citizens Advice are all easy to find online, and they exist precisely for moments like this. Before we finish, I want to sit for a moment with the core of what this whole issue is really about, because stripped of all the policy language, all the benefit thresholds and eligibility criteria, and parliamentary questions, it comes down to something very simple. Who you love should not determine how much financial support you receive in old age. That is the principle at stake here. A principle that the pre-2019 system actually, imperfectly, tried to honor. A principle that the 2019 rule change abandoned. A principle that Independent Age is fighting to restore. The people affected by this rule did not make unusual or irresponsible choices. They fell in love. They built lives together. Some married young, some later. Some have age gaps for reasons that have nothing to do with financial calculation, because love doesn't work on a benefits eligibility spreadsheet. And now, in later life, When financial need is real and the stakes are high, they are being told that the choice they made about who to spend their life with has a price tag attached to it, that the person they chose makes them less deserving of support than their identical neighbor who happened to pair with someone closer in age. That's not how a fair system works. It's not how any of us would design a system from scratch if we sat down and thought about what welfare provision in old age is actually for. It is for people who need it. And the mixed age couples rule, as it stands, is stopping some of the people who need it most from ever receiving it. That's the story. That's the injustice. And that's why it needs to change. We'll be watching this closely, and the moment there are any developments, any government announcements, any policy changes, any new data on how this rule is affecting people, you'll hear about it here first. Make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell on so you don't miss it. And if this gave you something valuable today, whether that's new information, a clearer understanding of how the system works, or simply the reassurance that you're not alone in finding all of this deeply frustrating, please give it a thumbs up. It helps this information reach the people who need it most. And drop a comment below if you or someone you know has been affected by the mixed age couples rule. Your story matters. It's part of the pressure that changes things. We'll see you next time.